Everybody knows just what to expect. With UW Dialectical's lewd, lugubrious weapons of logic. And we will hear endlessly that millions of dollars are at stake. And we will hear endlessly that some principle has been violated. And we will lose all sense of meaning and direction listening to these pre programmed drones from the wise owls in anarchic harmony with Robert Anton Wilson and various hippie pragmatists overseas. Let's have some background. You're allowed, yes, you very own American are allowed to discuss student bankruptcy being forgiven by Joe Biden's administration. You may do that. You may suck in your breath and say these billionaire slobs think it's untoward that students who are forced to study to get a grip of any sort on mainstream reality should be able to afford to do so. They would far rather have slaves than students. And they will say, speak nicely, and don't make a pact against the eugenic union of the Green Party's Zark, and they make certain forms of condo hospitable and other forms of condo darkly inhospitable. And yet they will secret with the screws, saying, secret with the screw, you have compromised. So you aren't idealistic. You can't be trusted. You aren't sacred truth vessels because they only want martyrs for entertainment. I would like to tell you the truth about how many of your kinsmen and your grannies just perished because UW Dialectical misconstrued what was going on. New York criminologists refused to allow you to evaluate or think and swore your fidelity in advance by the beams of media aristocracy to worship Yoko Ono in a seance of a bloodbath put to the tune of tragedy in the Ukraine. What gives has history that you smushed out. It has a history that you have chosen to forget. And it holds the lie of a new promise. You never give in because you have been given a promise. And you believe sacredly your whole heart in a promise that has already been broken and smashed. Seattle doesn't know its history. In the 80s, Vaclav Havel cut a deal with the devil. It led to the freedom of Mandela, which was a good thing, in return for silence in the AIDS attack, which they say wasn't an attack. It was. The fact that it was is proven. And the fact that they promised never to do it again was laughed at with COVID 19. Vaclav Havel is someone who Seattle professes to understand and refuses to understand. Vaclav Havel brought peace in Czechoslovakia because he was hospitable. That dirty word to Seattle, hospitable. Hospitality is a dirty word to Seattle. They can't stand hospitality. He was hospitable to all points of view. He wrote a play in which a man who was afraid to put his name on a petition was lobbying in back rooms for the same purpose that the petition was being circulated, to free someone unjustly imprisoned. And see, UW elected will say, oh, you must be unjustly imprisoned. You must be unjustly imprisoned. That's how you pay your dues. That's not the point. He was unjustly imprisoned. That's what you can't comprehend. It is not me who is morally deaf. Unjustly imprisoned. Oh, but he wouldn't sign the petition. He wouldn't sign the petition, says UW Dialectical, as they rip and chew at the carpet. The man who didn't sign the petition's backroom deals ultimately is what gets the individual unjustly jailed freed. Aha. Václav Havel was a humane person who believed in hospitable discussion. Mm-hmm. He almost could bring himself to say something about AIDS, but he was part of the scam working John Lennon. They had me in a state pre-seizure trance, and they erupted with the free speech movement one last time. For cleanup time, we will show you why we must clean up. And they had the Boogie Monster ranting about moral restraint at the Brooklyn Vultures who tortured him. Oh, but they were cleansed. They were cleansing agents. They were cleansing agents from holy Israel. Oh, said UW Dialectical. Holy Israel women. Oh. And they calmed down and accepted for Yoko Ono. Every promise was broken. Every promise was broken. They said, the girl who got me castrated said she was going to marry me. The nurse who poisoned me implied that they wouldn't slash or rip or Shannon Harps if I accepted the medical malpractice. And it led to me being chemically castrated, and then they rip or murdered Shannon Harps anyway. The fact of the matter is, the same people who killed Cersei Kennedy almost certainly killed Dugan's daughter over my band name Yvonne Toinette, which I removed from all poetry column. Did it matter? Nope. Nope. There's nothing you can say. They will kill and kill again. That's what they do. And they will make a promise. And UW Dialectic will say, you are the one who is not clean of tongue. What did they do all through the Václav Havel Merchants of Death scene? They were blowing up laboratories. They were murdering symbols, Lucille Ball, then Abby Hoffman, ding, 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 dong, ding, dong, ding, 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 dong, ding, 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 dong. 911, anthrax, 911, anthrax, and you're not allowed to talk about it because that's not playing nice if you talk about it. That's not John Lennon's sacred majesty if you talk about it. So what we're going to do is compel you to accept the murder of your grannies for the advocacy of the trannies of UW Dialectical, and Tulsi Gabbard will man the machetes. And she'll come in and chopbox them all. And they have a little death row of bobbleheads all set up in advance. And Mitchie Pooh will pucker his chin and say, Donald Trump's entitled to say anything he wants to about Elaine, but if you so much as know the whisper of the double meaning involved. You are marked to die. The psychopaths, all of them, help set this up to restore gubernatorial manipulative machinery through the postal unions and the NAACP for global fascism. And Russia's just doing what Russia always does when it comes to fascism, demanding a piece of the pie. Look at the black people coming out, young CRTs, critical race theorists, who hark back to Mother Africa, where I come from, the ancestors, the ancestors. Many of the pioneers fled the potato blight, did not own slaves. They won't allow you to say that twice. Okay, they'll say, you said that already. Don't keep talking about it. So, what happened in World War II was fascism. Do you think that the burning mad American Democrats of Roosevelt who went to war against fascism meant bad by you? So you bring out the swastikas. Warriors of Africa, unite behind the re-emergence of fascist Germany. Warriors of Africa. It's hard to get a democracy in place and keep it making progress. And we have done so. Pioneers who fled the potato blight, who did not own slaves, have worked and worked and worked in community colleges, helping Black people learn to master the problems of writing. They've never been greedy about it. They've donated their souls. And when the Pickens came from Seattle, what they wanted to know was, did your mother sleep with a black man? Did your sister sleep with a black man? I assume the answer is yes and yes. But what right did they have to demand an answer like that? We wanted to sleep in my house before I moved in. They won't kill me. A 7 foot tall black man with Laney Reifenthal, Pittsburgh, and Gail Burston said, we demand the right to sleep in your house before you move in. We will forgive you. If you don't, we will kill you, were their words. They will kill you. And they had taken slaughtering blows to my head. And what happens is Barack Obama emerges with Václav Havel's storyline about Midori Goto's clean practices in romance, and the goodies who were twice as bad. And she became the symbol of Texas queers in the AIDS attack. I kid you not. This is no joke. This really happened. Is what 119 and 911, the movie 119, has them laughing as they protect the clean Japanese girl from the burning buildings from somebody who was neuroplastically blown away. Hiroshima in the face. You ever see Hiroshima made? And they made me a Hiroshima boy. And then said, go ahead, cry when we castrate you, cry when we rape you, that's suck. Chinky, cry when we, and if it's not good enough, and we'll castrate you and slash or murder. No, maybe we'll be restrained, said UW Dialectical. You know, the building momentum trannies in Seattle, Washington, who have now emerged to cleanse you again with monkeypox. And you're not allowed, it's not nice to talk about that. It's not nice to talk about the fact that they've been yimboing the pendulum. Donnie Chen gets it, Cersei Kennedy, Mr. Dugan gets it. Do. Off to the hardware store. The National Rifle Association taught you correctly. The National Rifle Association knows what's what. If you know what's what, you'll sit down and think about Zelensky and what he's doing in the Ukraine. If you know what's what, you'll listen to Bernie Sanders. If you know what's what, you'll stay away from freedom of speech and talk hospitably about the issues you're allowed And none of this concern about what they did in Uvalde. Uvalde was a perfect example of the whole metaphor system that they built. I don't believe it didn't mean you have all day. I don't believe it. I believe that's what Peter Sinfield had in mind when he sent Arredondo's nuts in there. This is a symbol of what you won't protect. The dragons of the billionaire class say, oh, you don't want to be drafted into Ukraine. Oh, you don't. Oh, don't you? Well, what about south of the border? Well, you don't want to be dragged into that either, I suppose. Well, we'll draw the line, help you draw the line where you won't protect. Here's what you won't protect. You won't protect the right to tell the truth to the children and the grandmothers. And they call it being afraid. They say you're scaring seniors when you talk about them ripping out Social Security system. They want to rip out the Social Security system. These billionaire Republicans want to destroy the Social Security system and poach in the Ukraine. That's what their gig is. They didn't even say a word when whole fields of buildings were swept away by floods in Pakistan yesterday. Not one word. And they have the terrorism all corkscrewed in. They have if you write a poem, who who you've never heard of will scare the living daylights out of you because we'll find somebody who you immediately identify with, who you didn't even know existed, and we'll get a good laugh from our souvenir shelf. And they're doing like this. Oh, holy Reagan, holy Lenin, holy Reagan. Chant these words, please. That's all Roger Waters can. Working with people like Elon Musk and Peter Sinfield, who's all do with the hardware store with the super titty women of Queen Elizabeth, to whose family he married into when he was in that god awful Ripper Hatter Mad Hatter Genesis band. You know how obnoxious and psycho they really were. Well, they played Tweedle, 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 Dee Dee, Ping, Ding, 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 Dang, Dang, Dang. Mad Hatters trying to figure out how to enslave us and rip away the soul of our media. So that instead of having newspapers, we have Yahoo to read through, hoping it doesn't make us wince with its stupidities. And we get no editorials. Where's Robert Jameson? He was one of the last people to crawl before Václav Havel's gibberish, and he crawled away when post-intelligentsia died. He crawled away into the barely remembered segments of the bizarre of UW dialectal school's last gasp of liberalism. It's abominable. And Seattle sitting there in the sucking on this with their nostril syringes, going, how can we make this evil? How can we make this more evil? How can we make this evil? That's the whole city of Seattle's mindset.